see if we can get this thing and it working. There we go. Alrighty. So, what branch of the service and rank were you?
Oh, I was in the U.S. Army. Spec 4.
Spec 4. Okay. Alright. And what motivated you to join the military?
My president motivated me.
Oh, were you drafted?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I was drafted.
I was wondering. How old were you at the time?
Mm. 20 years old.
20. Alright. And you were married, right?
Yes.
Okay. And where were you, where did you go to get your training at?
I went to Fort Lewis, Washington for the basic training, and I went to AIT. I went to Fort Ord, California.
Wow. Alright. Do you have any stories from the training?
Well,
Or did you?
The training was more, you felt like harassment training. They was gearing you in to follow more orders, where you had to follow orders to keep things going, because if you didn't, then it would be chaotic. People wouldn't be doing what they're supposed to do. You had to get up at a certain hour, you had to go to bed at a certain hour, you ate when they said to, and you had to do a lot of cleaning. You cleaned your room, your barracks, your bed had to be properly made, all of your foot lockers had to be in sequence with everybody. Everybody's stuff in the foot locker had to be in the same spot that the other people's were. You couldn't just throw it in there. It had to be placed in certain areas in that foot locker, and everybody had to be the same. Nobody could have a different position in them. And the floors had to be cleaned, and the bathrooms had to be spotless. Your clothes had to be just as clean and starched. Your haircuts had to be, everything had to be perfect to each other. You couldn't be, nobody could be out of line of everything.
A heavy uniform. That's weird.
Yeah, everybody's uniform had to be all the same.
Wow.
If one person would fall out in formation and have a hat on, then everybody had to have a hat on, or everybody had to take a hat. He had to take the hat off.
Wow.
And then our drill sergeant would be up on a platform, and every morning he would say, "All you sick, lame, and lazies, fall out." And then you would stay there for calisthenics. And we did calisthenics on white rock. Wasn't on blacktop. You had to do calisthenics on white rock.
Yay, fun.
That was tough on the hands. You had to learn that.
Yeah. What was your main job after training?
Main job. After I got out of AIT.
Yeah.
That's when I was informed that we'd be going to Vietnam. And we got a 30-day leave before we went to Vietnam, which we knew was going to be infantry.
Yeah.
So that's the what that is.
Okay. Do you recall any unusual events or humorous stories from when you were over there?
When we was over there? Yes, it was very, it was scary at times. I remember when our plane landed, which landed in Cameron Bay, as soon as we got off, it was like 100% humidity, and the smell was just awful as soon as we stepped down off that plane. Yeah. And then it was at night when we got out, so we waited until the next morning, and that's when they brought us out, and we had to stand in the formation, and they would direct us to different spots.
Said you were supposed to go.
Yes, but we stayed there at Cameron for about probably 3-4 days before we ever got stationed to where we were really going to be going.
Yeah. how to make sure you guys are all in the right spot and going where you're going, and making sure nobody was going off and doing something else that weren't supposed to.
Yes.
Where were you? Where did you travel while you were in service?
I was at, we went from Cameron to a place called HIWD, and I was stationed there for a while, and then we went to Don Batin, and that's where I was stationed.
For most of it?
For most of the time, yes. And we pulled a lot of bunker guard, and then we would go out at night to secure the outside perimeter of our place that we were at. They we would be guarded because they had a lot of helicopters and they had planes there, which we were to protect from the enemy, and they would have us every so far apart. They would be a tower.
Yeah.
And we'd be in the tower. There'd be two of us in a tower. One would be sleeping while the other was guarding.
Yeah.
And then we would have these starlight scopes, which looked like binoculars, but it would shine a light. And you could see at dark. You could see any movement out there at dark time. And you couldn't with your visual eyes. You had to look through the starlight scope to see the background if anything was going on, which was barbed wire and minefields out in front of you.
How did you stay in touch with your family while over there?
We just wrote letters.
Letters.
Yeah, we didn't. There were no conversation over phone or nothing. No, we just wrote letters. It's the only way we had communication with people.
Yeah, there's no Facebook or anything back then.
No, no,
no internet.
No, they were none of that.
How was the food over there?
Well,
or was it like
most of we would eat our own food.
Mm-hmm.
They had canteens, and they would have places that we could go eat.
Yeah.
And we didn't eat any of their food.
Yeah.
I didn't want to even know what their food was.
Yeah, you get over to the Asian countries and you can have
Yeah,
some weird things pop up.
Yes, yes, they didn't have an overpopulated of dogs.
Yeah, yeah, like there is here some places.
Yes.
What was the biggest challenge that you experienced during the war?
The biggest challenge was when we had to go out. There was a helicopter was shot down in this valley,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to go in and secure that area so that the grave people could come in and get the bodies from there. We had to make sure that they were safe while they were doing that, and I had to carry a radio. I was a radio man for the lieutenant, and our lieutenant was good, but he was just out of his training,
Mm-hmm.
and he wandered off over away from where we were at, and he said, "Why didn't you come with me?" I said, "Well, if I was over there and we both got shot, then the radio's over there. They're not over here with them guys." Mm-hmm. I said, "That's one of the reasons I didn't want to go, because what good is it if both of us get shot over there and the radio's over there? They got to go try to get it back." So I said, I told him, I said, "I come over here for one reason, to go back home like I come over here, with all my fingers, and I'm going back the same way I come over here." And I said, it was too dang. I mean, you're not thinking. I said, your tunnel vision is too narrow. You've got to scan the area to make sure that they might not be nobody there, but you could step on a booby trap. Mm-hmm. That would have taken us both out. I said, I don't
I don't want to risk it.
I don't want to risk that. I'm not disobeying orders, but it's just that I felt that my need was over here with these people than it was wandering off somewhere where we shouldn't be going anyway. We shouldn't be over in that area because we didn't know what was over in that area. Our area was secured. We knew what was there,
Yeah.
and we didn't know what was beyond that area.
Yeah, because you guys didn't. You probably like go and expect that. Like.
Yeah, it was scary enough because at nighttime we didn't, you know, those people were so quiet that they could slide in on you and you'd never know it. That, and they had a lot of snakes. They had the cobras, they had the bamboo vipers, and just one bite and you're gone.
Yeah, because they have the tropical climate, I think.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of those animals that we don't usually
Yeah.
encounter.
Yeah, at first, a lot of them would take their boots off at night to sleep. I never took mine off, and for the first week or two, I wouldn't lay down on the ground. I'd sit up, but I would not lay down on that ground because you're laying there and you don't know what's crawling around you. And it just made me nervous. It scared me what was crawling around.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yes, we were going, and we had to help collect trash, pick up things while we were waiting for our plane to, and they got the paperwork, everything done to come in and take us out of there. So we had to go around, clean up everything, clean up barrels, clean up grounds. It was just more or less just to keep us occupied while we were getting ready to leave, because other than that we wouldn't be sticking around. They just wanted to use us to the last minute they could.
Yeah. Do you recall when you came home?
Yeah, it was. I came in San Francisco, and then from there I come into Chicago, and then from there I took a bus and brought it down to Paris. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get from Chicago any other way than a bus.
Yeah.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about the war or about the military in general?
I thought for a while it was, when I first got over there, I thought we were fighting a cause that wasn't going to end, because we were only to do certain things. We had to be careful not to do out of the ordinary, and I just could see that we weren't really getting anywhere, because their people had too much of China was involved in it, Russia was involved in it, because they had a lot of their people was using Chinese weapons, which was their AK-47s was just as accurate and just as sufficient to RM-16s. So we were fighting a hard battle. We was on their ground. They was in their own backyard.
Yeah.
They knew what the territory was like. They knew the surroundings. We was fighting in jungles that were so thick that you couldn't see nothing. And they could set booby traps and snipers, and
You guys wouldn't know.
we wouldn't know, because they would take and set their booby traps with like fishing wire, so thin and so little that you would trip it.
Before you even notice.
Yeah, and sometimes you would step on something on the ground, and you heard the click. You knew then you can't move one muscle, because you've already detonated, and when you come up off of it, that's when it would explode. So you'd have to bring demolition people in to try to reset it again before you'd step off, because maybe it would go off here, but further back behind you, it would go off also. So you didn't know. And if once one person was injured or one person in your group was killed, then they did that like a guerrilla warfare, so that when one person was shot in your group or hurt, that would throw everybody in a frenzy. I mean, they wouldn't concentrate on what they're supposed to be doing. They would be
trying to...
They would be worrying about their buddy, and that they would be worrying that if he's okay or what to do. Well, then the enemy would have an advantage because you were scatterbrained. You weren't concentrating on what you were to do after that happened. You were just, you weren't thinking clearly.
Yeah, you weren't staying calm.
No, you weren't staying calm, and you could fall into another trap, and the enemy would just put little booby traps out that would just tear up a group of men that were concentrating on something. But when one person's hurt, they lose concentration on what to do, and that would offset other things, and the enemy could win better that way. That's why they called it guerrilla warfare, because they didn't have the people that we had.
No.
So they had to fight in their own way, which one or two people would get hurt or killed. The enemy would back out, and you would get going again, but your concentration was lost. You were worrying about your fellow worker, your fellow people, and you weren't concentrating on what was going to be coming next. So that was what injured a lot of people. That and their lieutenants, their captains, weren't thinking clearly enough. They would put their people in more danger because, like our lieutenant, he wanted us to go into a grove of trees with trees on both sides of us. He wanted us to go up into the middle of it and circle around and come out. I said, that's not good. I said, that is waiting to happen. I said, they may not be nobody in there, but if we go in there, we're between two battles.
You don't have any coverage.
You have no coverage, and they're on both sides of you. You can't get away from it. You're just in a box, so you're trapped. So I said that you do what you're ahead of me, so you just do what you want. But my opinion is it's not a good opinion. And our lieutenant and our sergeants was in the field when we stepped onto that airplane, onto that helicopter to go out. I would always lock and load. I'd pull those chamber and one in the chamber, and then we had to put the barrel of the gun down. So if it accidentally went off, it wouldn't shoot through the top.
Yeah.
And I asked that gunner on the helicopter, I said, are we allowed to shoot also? He said, you shoot as long as you're not shooting to hit the helicopter. He said, you open fire too. Well, our sergeant and our captain said, you can't put a round in the chamber. When you get off the helicopter, you're going to have that gun cleared until you come under combat, under fire. He said, it only takes a second to put that round in there. I said, but his round has already come out of his gun. You don't have that second. They're not holding back. No. They've already ready to fire. Their guns are already rounded up. Us, by the time you get spooked and you're frustrated, you lose concentration. It's too late. They've got you because you have no round in the gun. You have to be rounded in. You have to have your finger on the safety and your finger on the trigger. I said, that's the only way. That's what I'm going to do. I said, I'm only here for a purpose. I'm going home. I'm not doing that. I said, my gun is going to be loaded and ready to fire as soon as I step out of that helicopter.
Hopefully you didn't. Hopefully you didn't need it.
Right. The helicopter, the first one I rode on, it was exciting. I thought because I was on the side that was tilted, and we had a soldier from the South Vietnamese. He was flying the helicopter with an American sitting next to him. And the American pointed down to the ground that this is where we have to drop them off at. Instead of making a wide circle, he just
tilted it.
And you're looking straight down to the ground. That made me push back. And he said, you don't have to worry, you won't fall out because gravity holds you in. The ones on the other side don't have gravity holding them. I said, that's okay. When I can look straight down and I see the ground, that ain't gravity to me. That means I'm slipping. So
Yeah.
That was the first helicopter ride, but after that it was cool. I liked the helicopter rides. It was nice. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You're up there about 300-400 feet. You can just see a long way off, and it was good. I liked that
You
part.
can see the beauty of it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful country. You have to admit it was beautiful in them mountains and the hills, but of course you knew that down on the ground
You knew what was going on down there.
it was not good down there.
Yeah. How did your participation in the war impact your life afterward?
I thought after I come home that we were, it was a war that we were never going to end. It was a war that 50-some thousand men lost their lives over for something that wasn't going to gain, because Saigon fell within 4 hours after we pulled out. After in 75, when we completely pulled out, Saigon fell and Ho Chi Minh City come in.
Yeah.
It was priced within that short of time. So we didn't gain their independence. We never gained their freedom, because it never happened. We didn't. Their people couldn't hold the ground after we pulled out, because they were understaffed, military-wise, and they just gave up. So the enemy took it back, and we just lost everything, and we never gained. Of course, they lost millions of people because our planes were more equipped. Our helicopters were more equipped. They didn't have those kind of things to help them out. That's why the Russians and the Chinese used their planes to take and use them on us. And that's why it was so bad. That was their stronghold for them, was the other people coming in to help them out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I got for you.
Okay.
Thank you for helping me today.
You're welcome.